I'm Bridget Stomberg.
And I'm Lisa DeSimone.
And this is Taxes for the Masses.
Today we discuss the death of the government's direct file program.
In November 2025, the IRS officially halted the direct file program, the government-run pilot program initiated by the Biden administration to allow taxpayers to file their federal taxes for free. In today's episode, we welcome Amanda Renteria, CEO of Code for America, to discuss the demise of the direct file program and what taxpayers can expect moving forward. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Abby.
So it is early days of the spring semester. How are things going for you so far?
I'll let you know when I get my head back above water.
Okay. Yes. I struggle to get back into the swing of things after a holiday break. I don't know if that's where you are. I'm still in that. What day is it? Yeah. Do I have to wake up? Do I have to put pants on today? I'm still in that mode.
Yes, and it didn't help things. So my fear of teaching in spring was always that it would ruin winter break because all I'd think about is like prepping for teaching. Mm-hmm. Turns out I was really good at compartmentalizing this winter break and didn't think about it at all. And so now I'm like, oh, right, yes, yep, teaching a new prep. Okay.
Okay, so you're teaching, I'm not teaching, but it is winter and it's cold and the sun doesn't come up until 8 o'clock in the morning. Everything is dead around us. So that's where I'm at.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's bleak.
I was in a mood when I got up today. So I guess it's actually quite fitting that today we're talking about a tax program that started with so much promise, aiming to make tax filing simpler, easier, and cheaper for millions of Americans. But now, just like all the plants around me, is dead.
That's dark, B. That is super dark.
Well, my nickname is Bleak B. I think it's fitting. So my talent and my propensity for gloom and doom is going to come out in full force today because we have yet another episode on the recurring topic of why can't we have nice things in tax land?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Why can't we have nice things?
I don't know.
It's depressing, but true. Yes. Today's episode covers the history and sudden tragic death of the IRS's direct file program.
But for those of you who missed the very brief, but shining moment of its existence, direct file was a pilot program started 2 years ago under the Biden administration. And its purpose was pretty simple and straightforward, and I would say laudable, which was to offer free tax filing for taxpayers. And the important part here is that it was going to be run directly by the IRS.
Also, free is kind of an important part of it.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah. And so to clarify, this isn't the old free file system that we've discussed before.
The quote unquote free file system.
Yeah, exactly. Quote unquote, because it was a partnership between the government and private for-profit companies, where those private for-profit companies were supposed to be offering free filing, but instead redirected people to chase profits and sell things that the people didn't necessarily have to pay for because incentives. No, this direct file program was the government saying, hey, we already know a lot of your information. Maybe we should just help you file your return for free. Makes sense.
Using information already available to improve efficiency.
Right.
Laurels for spring. Groundbreaking. Yes, using information that the tax authority already has does make things more efficient. And spoiler alert, many other wealthy developed nations do this. They actually manage to pull this off without everybody getting so upset about it.
Yeah, which we've talked about on a prior episode. Perhaps not terribly surprisingly, but there were American taxpayers who were kind of interested in this concept of free, easier filing directly with the government. IRS surveys showed that a majority of taxpayers were interested in using an IRS-provided tool, including 81% of those with limited English proficiency.
Okay.
Over 80% of taxpayers who already self-prepare their returns were interested in direct file because they wanted the low cost, privacy, and security in their options.
So as one of the taxpayers in this country who does self-prepare her tax return, would you have been interested in direct file?
Yeah, I would totally use it. Absolutely.
Okay. I like it. Taxpayers also, importantly, want the IRS to pre-populate data from forms like your W-2 and your 1099s to streamline the process. And I'm cheap. You know me. Everybody knows I'm cheap. So I like the
Yes.
free part of it.
Yes.
But I think for me, this is the part that is the most intuitive and beneficial. You already know it. Just
Right.
put it on the form for me. It's not like this is a test where you're grading me on how well I can actually read my W-2 and put the numbers on the form accurately. You know it. Just put it there.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah. So the direct file program started as a pilot program where they focused it on a relatively small group of taxpayers with relatively simple returns. That makes sense to me as a pilot
Yep.
program.
Logical.
Taxpayers who used it filed directly through an IRS-run online portal. They just had to answer a few questions, verify some of the info that was already pre-populated, and bada bing, bada boom, they were done.
And perhaps the most amazing part of this whole thing is that the reviews were glowing.
Yeah.
The IRS commissioner at the time, Daniel Werfel, again, not to be confused with the former UF quarterback Danny Werfel, said that users reported the system was, quote, easy, clear, intuitive.
Wow.
Many taxpayers finished the entire process in, wait for it, under 30 minutes.
What?
About 300,000 taxpayers used the program, and based on everything I just said, it sounds to me like that pilot was not just a success, but a pretty massive success.
Yeah, the problem is that success apparently is a very subjective term when...
No.
Well, from the perspective of the massive multi-billion-dollar industry that thrives on confusing people into paying $70 or more for something that should be free to them.
Yes, you're 100% right. And unfortunately, that's where the drama kicks into the story. Even before Direct File was fully implemented, Congress, through the Inflation Reduction Act, directed the IRS to study its feasibility. So as we discussed on a prior episode, as an independent third party provided an opinion, they did a study for the government to provide their expert opinion on whether Direct File could actually even be pulled off in theory.
Exactly. And their conclusion was that a direct file program for sure was feasible, but it was critically dependent on the IRS maintaining it as a leadership priority, starting with a limited scope pilot, expanding gradually over time to work out kinks, like basic sensible planning and change management.
Absolutely. But what did the private sector and their allies think of basic sensible planning and change management? Hated it. So remember, tax preparation is a multi-billion dollar industry, and companies like TurboTax have lobbied hard for 2 decades to essentially prohibit the IRS from ever developing its own e-filing software, which would compete and potentially cut into their profits.
Exactly. And the political opposition to direct file was from the get-go, right?
Yes.
Republican Senator Mike Crapo, during a hearing, called direct file program inefficient. He argued that if the IRS used the funds allocated to direct file to instead pay third-party providers, quote, literally hundreds of times the number of taxpayers could file for free, end quote.
Which is an interesting point, but completely ignores the history of the fact that the private sector actually actively undermined the existing free file program and tricked. And this is not our opinion. There have been lawsuits and judgments and court rulings saying that these providers were tricking low-income taxpayers into paying for services that they were entitled to receive for free. And let me just take a step back here. Is that to be expected? Yes, because these are for-profit enterprises, not charitable organizations.
Right. So let's give them more money to reward this behavior.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Senator Crapo, bless his heart, also ignored that the program was intentionally limited in its focus as a start, because the last thing you want to do is roll something out to everybody and then have things break or realize that it's not going to suit their needs. So they rolled it out slowly to a small number of taxpayers. He and others spin it on its head, saying that, well, not many taxpayers used it, so it must not be very popular, necessary, or efficient.
Yes, it's a classic political move of misrepresenting the facts. That 300,000 number was chosen on purpose, intentionally, for all the reasons that you just said. It wasn't the limit. It wasn't the upper bound of what that system could support.
It wasn't that people weren't interested in using it.
No.
Yeah. Nonetheless, the opposition eventually won, and the pilot program is now dead.
So in a succinct manner, what killed it?
The Trump administration.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the administration officially killed the program, arguing that the existing Free File program offered through these for-profit commercial tax prep companies was a more effective option. And
Yeah.
they had signaled earlier in the year that this was coming. Everybody kind of knew this was coming, particularly when they reduced the number of staff working on Direct File by 80%.
It's just brutal. Like, not many things work as well as this seemingly worked. And so we're going to go and cut the legs out from under it.
Yeah.
While it's being rolled, like while the pilot is happening. And then we're going to say that it wasn't doing well enough. Like, we're not going to give it any resources. And then we're going to complain that it's not effective.
Why are we
when all
surprised
evidence
by
is to the
this?
contrary?
Why are we surprised by this? This is what they've done with the IRS
I
for
know.
decades. But yeah, that's basically what they did. The Treasury Department's report stated that while Direct File is gone, they plan to boost Free File instead, including increasing promotions to taxpayers.
Which is great, assuming that the IRS can suddenly afford to advertise, having
Right.
spent only about 1.5 million max on Free File advertising the last time they tried it in 2014, and assuming that the private companies don't just do what they already did. Like,
Yeah.
this didn't work the first time. We built an alternative. Why on earth do we think that the old broken thing that we have evidence didn't work is now suddenly going to work?
Well, this time it's different.
Oh, I forgot that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, this move takes us backward. There's no denying it. We've now lost the opportunity to use this technology to improve services that taxpayers have to do to make it easier for them, to make it less costly for them, to make it, just easier for them to comply and receive tax incentives that they're eligible for.
Yes. God forbid. I mean, it's a bummer.
It's a bummer.
It's a bummer, and I'm not optimistic, but I guess some historians out there are. So Vanessa Williamson noted that although Direct File didn't survive, it did lay important groundwork, acting as a model for states and for the federal government in the future. God bless you, Vanessa Williams, because I'm not feeling it.
Well, I will say a future where we decide to make government services like tax filing easier for taxpayers, that is a future I can vote for.
Me as well.
Amanda Renteria serves as the CEO of Code for America, a civic tech nonprofit that works with the U.S. government at all levels to make the delivery of public services equitable with technology. Under her leadership, Code for America has emerged as a partner to governments and community organizations nationwide, working to realize the vision of, quote, a government by the people, for the people, in the digital age. She's championed initiatives that directly impact millions of Americans' lives, including improving the process of tax filing that we're going to discuss with her today. When the IRS launched Direct File, Code for America built File Your State Taxes, a state tax filing tool designed to work with Direct File. And since 2020, more than $1.2 billion in tax benefits have been claimed by hundreds of thousands of families using Code for America's tools. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Wow, we're excited to be here with you.
We'd love to understand from your perspective, why do you think Direct File was canceled?
Yeah, well, first of all, my heart is breaking as we
I
even
know.
say that. There's so
Yeah.
much work to get it done. But if I just sort of step back and recognize the environment we're in, interestingly, I think one of the biggest reasons is just simply politics. Generally, when you go from one administration to the other, there are always some programs that go away. But in this case, usually you would see a program that people loved, that government did it differently, sort of as an example of what is possible. And generally, you'd see an administration sort of pick that up and run with it and do even better, whether it was Direct File or expanding it or moving it into that sort of customer service and other agencies. But this administration transition was unusual in that most things, particularly if they were marketed with a Biden tag or the last administration tag or any other administration, those things got pulled. And so part of what was unfortunate is that this great example of what is possible got pulled in this moment. Now, what I will say is it's always been a little bit of a football when there's the conversation around should government help people file their taxes.
Yep.
And the truth is, Code for America believes that if government gives you a bill, they should make it easy to pay. But not everyone believes that. And we have a whole industry that believes that the private sector should provide this. And so there's generally been this debate years and years when I was on the Hill, off the Hill, back on the Hill. It comes up again, which is, isn't this the role of the private sector? And so one of the debates here that we're having right now in the country broadly is what is the role of government? And along with that, direct file gets swept up into that, which is to say, should it live in the private sector or should government figure out how to do it itself in a really great way? And direct file really presented that. But now the pendulum has swung and the private sector is going to have its chance to do it again in a way that hopefully provides truly free file to low-income folks, which is really has been our focus at Code for America.
So I like how you put that if the government wants something from you, they should make it easy for you to give it to them. If they want your tax revenue, they should make it easy. So from your perspective, what did direct file get right? What were some of the benefits and the strengths? And maybe you could talk specifically about what you think it gets right relative to the private sector as well.
Yeah. Well, first of all, like any government service or any government change, one of the things it got right is it didn't give up. Right? There's a whole coalition out there that has for a very long time tried to make taxes easier, particularly for low-income people. We have in this country a volunteer effort, right, that is in low-income communities to help people figure out how do you pay your taxes, how can folks help make sure you get your tax credits for low-income communities. And so one thing is just remembering that some of this stuff takes time, and there's a whole lot of people who keep at it. Volunteers, organizations like us out there, organizations who do financial literacy to try and make it easier. But the other things that got right on a much more tactical level is really bringing the tech talent inside the federal government to build code, to figure out how do you do this in the right way? How do you make sure that you have clients at the table from the very beginning when you actually build software? Oftentimes government will build something based on their processes that they already have.
Right.
One of the beautiful things, right, about direct file is that it was based on actually asking people how is the process of filing a tax form. And the minute you start to do that, you realize, oh, wow, that question is confusing. Of course, that's going to be the wrong answer that they get on their filing, right? Oh, we haven't told people they have to make sure they have their stubs around, right? All these things that direct file got right in terms of simple questions, in terms of user right at the center, and then the iterative process as well. So one of the things about direct file, when we were working with government, and I remember the early days of it where the administration said, okay, we're going to roll out everything, right after, tax filing starts. And you're like, whoa, hold on a second. We want to make sure that this is the best thing possible. Right. So let's iterate. Yeah. And so the process was just as celebrated inside government and as it was when we had major success. And so it was not only about the foundational code that was built, it was the process throughout. And then I would say the last thing about it is that we tested it, right? That's how we know it is more popular than ice cream because we asked people, right?
What?
Yes, more popular than ice cream. So we asked a survey, how was your experience? Yeah. And did you really like it, right? And it was we loved it. And the people who did it wanted to do it again. And so part of the process of good software is that you make sure you test that people really liked it. And when they don't, importantly, especially in those early days when they're like, this was confusing, you fix it.
So let's look at the flip side of that coin then. All right. We just talked about what they did right. What would you do differently next time?
Yeah, I don't think we needed to we were really careful. When you're working with government, I think there's always the fear, especially at the federal level, there's always a fear that you're going to put something out there and it's going to break. And then all of a sudden, people are going to throw tech out.
Yep.
And especially in this setting, right, where it was under such scrutiny.
That's right. I mean, taxes are something people get very nervous about as well. So you're dealing with a product that needs to be trusted. That is our revenue as a country, right? So this is a pretty valuable, sensitive thing. And so we were really careful about rolling it out with, first of all, internally, right, with internal clients. And then you roll it out in just sort of batches, if you will. And I think we were very, very careful about that, which ended up leading to fewer people using it because we wanted to get it right. And I think we could have reduced the reins a little bit more to get more volume and to say, hey, let's do more outreach, right? Government in general, when you try a new program, generally you'll see a politician right on the stage and be like, we're going to do this. In this case, we were actually quite quiet about it. And we kind of rolled it out a little bit at a time. But that meant that we weren't bringing in masses. And so I think I would have tried to convince the government to go a little bit faster and a little bit wider in outreach sooner than we did, so that at the end of the year, we would have had more people using the product. And maybe it wouldn't have been wouldn't have got scores of ice cream, but it would have it would have been like a nice restaurant.
Yeah.
Sherbert.
Sherbert, there you go. That's right.
So now that direct file is no longer an option for this filing season, what should taxpayers be doing, particularly if they are low income, if they do need a little bit of help with their filings? What should they be thinking about?
Yeah, well, we still have our getyourrefund.org site, which really helps people, whether it's you do it yourself, which a lot of people have started to, particularly younger folks. I was on a college campus not too long ago, and everyone's like, oh, I do it myself, because there are tools. And so this idea that you can now do it yourself, we offer getyourrefund.org to help do that. But there's also VITA centers, particularly for low-income folks, that we are really trying to reach with direct file to make it easy and simple. There are still VITA centers out there where you can go and you can get help to fill out those, out tax forms.
You've already mentioned a few different assistance programs. There's also, in addition to direct file, which is the one that's dead now, there's also free file. Can you help our listeners understand the difference between those two, and why isn't free file the solution that we need? Why did we also want this direct file?
Yeah. So one of the things in history is there was an alliance of private sector taxpayers who offered free file. And the idea was that the government wouldn't actually provide their own direct free file. That instead it would be a coalition of private sector companies. And that was a nice idea. The problem is companies at that time would then provide or would then use that free file process and either sell different products and or make the free file process hard, making it easier to then choose, all right, I'm going to pay, X dollars in order to just have the easier process. And so it didn't work the first time around. Now, I want to withhold judgment on this second time around because it's the same structure where private sector companies have come together to say, hey, we're going to offer it for free for low-income folks, preserving their capabilities to do that, taking away direct file. Now, here's the thing. When the federal government was able to provide that free filing service themselves, because the government has a lot of information themselves, they could actually help fill in some of that data, right? So instead of saying, what's your income from last year? It could say, is this your income from last year?
Right.
Because they have the data. And so for me, part of the problem with free file is the gotcha game is a little bit back, right? Which is like, oh, well, did you get that answer right when we asked you how much income you were off by $1? And now your tax filing process is, in controversy. So that's that. Unfortunately, we've lost that in this moment. The last thing I'll just say about the Free File Alliance is I think this is the year that's important to have accountability. So as we see this Free File Alliance come back into play, making sure that people are really careful when they do it and what it all means, because I think this is a moment where we can hold private sector accountable for saying, wait a second, this was supposed to be free and easy and simple. And there's definitely the technology that can do that now. And so what I like to say is direct file raises the bar of what taxpayers should expect.
I love that.
You said the reviews were very positive from the users, ice cream level satisfaction with the product. Were there particular aspects of it that they found attractive and appealing?
A lot of what we got back was just that it was simple and easy, that it walked you through it, right? That it felt welcoming. I mean, I think one of the things that we took particular pride in as we were, developing the early prototypes of it is that one is just the expectation that people have that tax filing is really hard, really bureaucratic, and it's almost as though you're like being penalized as you're doing it.
Yep.
And to hear people say it was actually enjoyable was really one of those things where we walk back and we're like, we're doing something right here. How did we make tax filing enjoyable? And I think as you go through the process, it did inform you. You could click on and say, why did I have to do this? And so our goal in it was not just to be enjoyable, but to also be educational. And we got back like some of the things that we really loved seeing was like, now I understand.
Yes.
Right. And that part to us at Code for America is so critical because that's the trust element of government and really serving people in a way that builds back that trust of democratic institutions again, even as you're, paying your taxes.
Yeah.
Part of what we talked about is if we can make that part enjoyable, then we're really building back that sort of trust in government that I think right now we're seeing really dismantled. So
that's amazing.
I love that.
I always say, having been in government for a really long time, that these things come back, right? And even though it might not feel right now like things are, gonna come back because it feels so dead at the moment, I've seen over and over again that when new administrations come in, when new expertise come in, they pick up these wins that have been had in the past because they're looking for good ideas that make a difference in people's lives. And so one of the things that I keep holding on to in the work that we're doing now in this moment is that it comes back. And this is one of those that was such good customer service, that the code is still there, that modernization is happening. This is going to be still a shiny object for any administration that comes in, and really for states and localities who want to really look at a model to how do you get to not just people, interacting with government, but compliance as well.
Yeah.
So how do you do compliance in a way that really gives dignity and respect and people enjoy? And so I'm still hopeful and need to stay hopeful because over the course of my career, I've seen these things pop up again. And I think we're going to have another chance.
I certainly hope so.
Me too.
Me as well. Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for, having this conversation because it's how it doesn't die, right? It really is.
Right. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on to continue this conversation. So thank you so much, and love your passion and your enthusiasm for this topic.
I know. I'm a tax geek, tax nerd.
You're in good company.
Yes.
There you go. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you, Amanda.
Alrighty. See ya.
Bye. So it's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I got to say, this is one of the more dynamic guests, passionate guests that we've had.
This is one of the limited times where I wish that we did have a visual to go with the audio, because she was gesticulating, she was smiling, she was in it to win it.
Very charismatic.
Very, and you can tell that she really thinks this is important. We happen to agree.
Right.
And I just loved how she was able to remain positive and kind of put an optimistic spin on it, because if I had invested so much time in something and this is the paper that you workshop and everybody loves it and the results line up, and then you get rejected at the journal for nothing. Right. And it is very hard to still be happy and optimistic and proud and positive after that rejection. And she was bringing that energy, and I applaud that.
I agree. Yeah. If I wasn't already on board with it, I would be on board with Direct File after talking with her. She's very convincing.
So great guest, very passionate about what she's doing, great attitude, and fighting the good fight.
Yeah. Bad.
What's bad?
I mean, it's a lot of things we've said, right? Like, why are we going back to private companies expecting them to behave in a way that's not aligned with their incentives?
No,
and
because that always works really well.
Right. And to your point, behave differently than they've ever behaved in the past. Like, what's different about this time? Nothing. We should expect nothing to change.
Is it a Maya Angelou quote? When someone shows you who they are, you need to believe them the first time. We have these two options, and let's go with the group of people who already has the infrastructure and the expertise in place and see how it goes. Then maybe I could get behind it, maybe, but not even really, because it still makes more sense from my perspective that you should be dealing directly with the government. But that's not the situation that we're in. They had years and years and years to do it right, and they did it so wrong that they got sued and lost those lawsuits and had to pay fines for deceptive practices. And we're going to give them another chance. None of this makes any sense to me, and it's actually infuriating.
It's totally infuriating, because the line that they keep saying is that we think the private sector can do a better job than the public sector when doing this. What alternative facts are we looking at here? Because the data do not support that conclusion.
No, and I think this is one of the reasons why I was so impressed that with Amanda's optimism. What they built worked.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, okay, federal government, we gave you a try and you couldn't pull it off. You didn't do it well enough. It worked. Yeah. And so the fact that we have a viable alternative that people really enjoyed and was going to solve a lot of problems, and we're throwing it away to play into the interest of a lobby, I'm over it.
And it gets really ugly with, I think, the reasoning behind why they killed it. It's so infuriating to me that they say like not many taxpayers used it, so clearly it wasn't very popular. No, that's what happens when you roll it out slowly on purpose. It's so freaking frustrating.
So I just am going to go to the internet and read you the definition of a pilot.
Okay.
It is a small scale.
Yes.
That's literally the first word in the definition. Small scale.
Yeah.
They did this exactly the way they were supposed to do it. And then it was used against them in a convoluted retelling of the facts.
Well, and it would have been used against them either way. If they had a larger scope and then there were issues with it, then the criticism would have been like, well, it doesn't work, right? You know, and so you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, either way.
The Wall Street Journal editorial board opinion stated as fact, quote, the IRS and taxpayers have opposite incentives. Interesting. If the taxpayer's incentive is to pay as little tax as legally possible, then this implies that the IRS's incentive is to collect as much tax as legally possible. But I don't think that that's the IRS's incentive. They want a correct amount. They want compliance. The IRS is not taxed with maximizing revenue. That's Congress's job to design the tax law to increase revenue if that's what they want to do. The IRS's job is to collect the proper and correct amount of revenue. So this idea that the IRS is your enemy, and so therefore they shouldn't be running a program, absolutely insane. It's
totally insane, but it's absolutely the belief, or at least the stated belief, of people who try to kill this program. And I've heard it a lot. I've heard it that, you know, the IRS is necessarily in a combative position with taxpayers. Not true. Like, where did we get this notion that it's the job of the IRS to maximize the revenue that they collect? Why do people think that?
And the other thing that I take exception with is, let's be real, the taxpayers who are most likely to use this are the ones who have simple tax returns. I can read my W-2. If the IRS came back and sent me a form that said my W-2 wages were $1 million, I know that's wrong. I'm not an idiot. And I would not sign that return, and I would not pay those taxes, and I would not send that back. So even if the IRS was cooking up some nefarious scheme to over-report my income, I mean, this really casts American taxpayers as big, dumb idiots. And I'm just going to get a form in the mail and go, oh, okay.
Right.
Sure. And it's just, it's not true that they're adversarial to you. And I would like to give taxpayers a little bit more credit for being able to read a form. You're still going to have third-party reporting.
Yeah. And I'd like to give the IRS a little more credit for they're not trying to shake down taxpayers and get every single penny that they can get out of you. They want to get to the right answer of appropriately applying the tax law that was written by Congress. So I get almost all of my news from the Wall Street Journal, but I do not read the opinions of the editorial board because they are not based in sound fact and logic.
I will say that this episode has done absolutely nothing to improve my mood today.
What would improve your mood? Cookies?
Ice cream? No, I am. I'm walking across the street to Starbucks right now and getting a chocolate chip cookie.
Good. Excellent. Well, that's all we have time for today.
Be sure to join us for more tax nerdery on future episodes of Taxes for the Masses.